permit to work. Okay, seperti yang kita tahu bila kita bekerja di dalam industri, jika kita ada apa-apa projek, mesti perkataan pertama yang akan keluar daripada organisasi is about permit to work. Adakah permit to work tu dah buka ke belum? So hari ni kita nak kupas lebih lanjut berkenaan topik ni. So soalan pertama saya kepada Puan Syamini ialah apa sebenarnya permit to work ni sebenarnya?
Okay. Terima kasih Sabah. So so thank you. So I like to wish everyone thank you. Terima kasih luangkan masa ya. Ni dah 9 malam on a Wednesday night. Bila kita cerita pasal permit to work ni, biasa gambaran yang orang ada adalah it is a form. Dia satu borang. Okay, kalau saya nak buat kerja, saya kena isi borang ni. Dan borang ni lah yang akan membenarkan saya. So it's permit to approval kan. Kita kata siapa approve permit biasanya. So borang yang membenarkan saya untuk continue kerja. Buat kerja hari ni. And then kalau esok ada kerja, I boleh extend. So pemahaman tu macam it is a permission. Sebab dia kata permit to work. Ia adalah satu kebenaran. Tetapi kalau kita tengok sebenarnya konsep permit to work ni, kita introduce a long time ago. Ni dah it is a form yang very long time ago. Dah lama kita ada orang yang dah otak-otak ini tanya, dia mesti ingat benda ni. Right? Dia pun tak ingat bila benda ni orang introduce. So it's a very old form in the industry. So kenapa bila kita start permit to work ni? It started sebab masa data-data incident, right? Yang kita analyse, kita buat analisa, kita tengok kerja dimulakan tanpa fikirkan bahaya-bahaya kerja tersebut. How can I get hurt from this? Apa bahaya yang ada? So soalan tu tak pernah ditanya. So sebagai untuk menginstitusikan pemikiran tersebut, biasanya orang akan introduce like a checklist. So di situ mulanya permit to work tu. So I ada satu checklist, I kena kata okay, semasa saya nak buat kerja ni, ada apakah bahaya-bahaya yang ada dan bagaimana saya nak kerja dengan selamat. So kena jawab dua soalan ni dan okay, you agree, I agree, okay kita dah agree, kita start. So that's the basic concept. Tetapi lama-kelamaan kita dah busy dengan maturity yang ada dengan kontraktor, maturity yang ada even dekat site. So lama-kelamaan tu benda tu dah jadi macam you isi form ni, you boleh buat kerja. Yang hilang kat tengah-tengah tu adalah what is the purpose of this form? Dah hilang. So people start to think it is an approval to do work. Itu je. I ada permit ni, maksudnya I ada kebenaran untuk buat kerja. Tapi apa sebenarnya permit to work adalah, ia adalah satu record. Ia adalah satu dokumen dan dia punya fungsi dia adalah record. Apa yang dia record? Dia record yang saya telah menganalisa semua risiko, semua hazard yang ada dalam kerja tersebut dan saya sudah ada perbincangan bagaimana saya nak buat kerja ni dengan selamat. Okay, you agree, I agree dan I sign. Lepas tu apa jadi dengan borang tu, kita file. Oh, okay dah. I dah dapat benda tu, dah file. So, perbincangan ni pun akan hilang. You tengok bila orang issue permit. So, orang issue sana, seorang issue sini. Lepas tu dah assign. Lepas tu, buat kerja kan. Perbincangan tu pun hilang. Dan selepas kita issue permit tersebut,
bangsa sedang berjalan besar.
okay, selepas kita issue permit tersebut, kita ambil permit tu, ia adalah sebagai satu reference. Rujukan kita untuk communicate kepada pekerja. Ini adalah apa yang kita telah bincangkan. Ini adalah hazard-hazard yang kita telah. Dan lepas ni kita bagaimana dan hari ini skop kerja dan inilah cara kerja yang selamat. So kita kena komunikasi. Tapi bila you interview ke, bila I bincang dengan site safety supervisor, bincang dengan safety personnel, dia kata, kalau what is the hazard and how do you control, how do you make the place safe or the work safe, jawapan dia, saya issue permit, saya buat toolbox talk. Tetapi essence dia dah hilang.
Ya, basically kalau refer to pengalaman saya yang sekadar setahun ni je pun dalam safety ni, saya setujulah dengan panel kita. Cuma satu benda yang selalu jadi query dekat saya ni, adakah orang yang issue permit to work tu perlu orang yang kompeten? Sebab sekarang ni kita punya permit to work for some organisation dia jadi too complex. Sometimes ada up to 4 pages, 5 pages. So, adakah soalan pertama saya, adakah orang itu perlu orang kompeten dan siapa yang verify sebenarnya?
Okay. So, layered question. Ada dua soalan tu. Satu tu permit to work dah jadi macam Noella cerita dah cerpen kan. It's become too long and too complicated. Satu lagi, adakah kita perlu orang yang kompeten untuk issue permit, review permit. So, ini pun dah sebab kita take it as ia jadi satu approval dan ia adalah satu borang yang saya perlu untuk saya start kerja. Benda ni pun dah hilang dalam implementation. So, bila kita tengok, kalau saya sebagai permit issuer, apa tugas saya? Saya kena faham bahawa ini adalah saya punya area, tempat kerja saya, atau ini adalah saya punya equipment. Apa yang jadi sekarang adalah, orang yang jaga tempat kerja tersebut atau orang yang jaga equipment tersebut, jaga sistem tu, dia sendiri tak tahu apa-apa pasal tu. And that is where the permit to work system tu jadi weak. So, the role of the issuer adalah, ini adalah tempat kerja saya. So, saya lah orang yang faham tentang tempat kerja saya dan saya agree. Inilah cara kerja yang selamat. Ya, you nak buat macam ni. Sebenarnya ini ada benda ni. So, dia ada kompetensi untuk memberi advice. Tapi apa jadinya sekarang, kompetensi dah hilang sebab area owner yang kita identify ataupun area owner yang kita beri tugasan tersebut sendiri tak faham tentang dia punya tempat kerja. Daripada segi keselamatan, dia mungkin expert dalam dia punya kerja, tapi dari segi keselamatan tu, that kompetensi dah hilang. So, dia weaken, dia jadi melemahkan sistem permit to work. So, dia ada, bagus, dalam documentation semua okey, ada permit, ada ni, ada tu, tetapi kompetensi issuer tu tak ada sebab dia tak ada kompetensi untuk menilai dari segi keselamatan kerja dia sendiri. I ada people who have told me, saya boleh tulis SOP macam ini, tapi kalau you nak suruh saya tulis safe work procedure, saya tak boleh. So, this is conflicting. So, ini kita kena faham kalau you tak boleh tulis satu prosedur yang dia kata safe work procedure saya tak boleh tulis, tapi prosedur cara kerja saya boleh tulis, maksudnya cara kerja you tu lack two things, quality dan safety. Maksudnya kerja yang you buat tu sebenarnya tak betul. Sebab SOP bukan ada satu safe work procedure, ada satu quality work procedure, lepas tu ada work instruction. SOP atau work instruction atau all the procedures that we have, dia sebenarnya gabung tiga-tiga ni dan kata, okay, untuk mencapai tiga-tiga ni, inilah cara kerja dia. So, kalau kompetensi tu dah tak ada, so kita punya permit to work system akan lemah. Lepas tu kita juga ada permit receiver kan, orang yang terima permit, atau setengah company kata permit holder. Orang yang terima permit, sama juga cerita. Dia terima permit, and these are the people that I know how to do my work, I don't know anything about safety. Ini adalah bahaya dalam sistem permit tersebut. This is the dangerous point, and this is the highest risk competency. So, bila kita tanya, oh you nak kerja tempat tinggi, boleh? Mana kompetensi? Lepas tu dia tunjuk, I attend awareness course. So, pemahaman tentang kompetensi pun dah tak ada. They don't even know what competency. I attend the course what? This is it, working at height. Kata dah ada cert. Ni NIOSH punya course ni. Kita kena educate sampai what is competency and what is attendance certificate. So, Competency is very important. So kita boleh ada, and we have very good permit to work system. I don't deny that. Tetapi apa yang jadi masalah dalam permit to work system ini adalah salah satu is competency. Sebab cara pemikiran untuk bekerja dengan selamat tu tak ada. In both parties. Issuer pun tak ada, acceptor pun tak ada. Dan kita pula nak bincang pasal hazard dan risk, kita pula nak pergi communicate kepada worker, the whole system goes wrong. Satu lagi adalah, and this one is my pet peeve, I never like it. Yang permit to work tu jadi berjela-jela entah berapa page. Lepas tu permit to work tu kita kena duduk tulis dan tulis. Banyak sangat benda nak tulis. So that is not an efficient system. So kenapa? Background of why? Kenapa dia jadi sampai macam ni? Yes? Because we are so worried that kita rekod semua benda ni, and we are so worried that kalau kita tak tulis semua, we don't write it to the T, so semua nak tulis. Lepas tu, we don't have deniability in court. Dia jadi, it's no more a situation where I prepare borang ni bukan untuk hazard identification, bukan untuk risk assessment, bukan untuk communication. I prepare the document supaya dia so complete, kalau pergi DI ke, pergi court ke, tak boleh nak. Oh, I done. I show you, I do already. Right? So, the intent dia sudah hilang. Whereas, kenapa dia jadi macam tu? It goes back to the competency. Kalau I need a very simple form, if my competency, orang yang buat permit issuance, permit acceptance tu ada competency. So, that should be your basic. You cannot, sebab dia area owner, dia permit issuer. Dia ada kompetensi tak untuk buat assessment and sign off the permit? That's more important. So probably bukan head of department is the right person. It could be another competent person there. So if I'm in an engineering department, I bukan HOD yang nak sign benda ni. I'll get my electrical chargeman as the issuer. So dia lah competent. Bukan I. I'm management. I don't know anything of the work. So kena fikir balik benda-benda ni. Sebab sebagai satu proses, sebagai satu sistem, the form, everything is perfect. Bila kompetensi tu dah tak ada, itu yang kita kena tambah ni, check ni, sampai permit issuing, sebenarnya start hanya 2 orang je sign pun. Sekarang dah beribu-ribu orang sign sebab of all this kita make up for gaps. Tapi bila kita make up tu, we don't use the correct or the right controls. If you need competent person, itulah gap dia. Bukan sebab dia tak competent, kau tu suruh safety datang verify, safety datang sign. Nampak tak benda-benda ni semua jadi? It's because you are not addressing the gap, you try to cover the gap. Dah situasi macam ni, okeylah kita buat macam ni. Lama-lama tu dia, the whole system lemah balik.
Okay, so based on discussion ni, perkataan yang paling famous yang keluar is competency sebenarnya. So, okay, bila kita ada work at height, when we do work roofing, so sometimes kan, bila kita, contoh kontraktor ataupun area owner isi PTW, bila kita tanya about the competency, usually they will lost. Kompetensi apa yang perlu? So during that time, kita as a safety, bila kita bagi safety briefing, kita pun, kita dah nampak ada satu risk. Especially do a roofing job. So basically, competency ni apa actually the requirement? Especially untuk high risk task lah, of course lah. Contohnya work at height.
Okay. So biasanya bila kita kata kompetensi kan, jawapannya senang. Do I know the nuances of the job? Selok belok kerja tu, do I know? That's one competency, right? Dan bagaimana kita buat kerja ni dengan selamat from a safety perspective, right? So bagaimana saya buat kerja ni dengan selamat? Adakah saya mempunyai pengetahuan yang mencukupi? Satu lagi adalah deliverables. So deliverables maksudnya, at the end of it, bila saya buat kerja ni, what is the outcome? Biasanya kita masuk permit to work kan. So sometimes I do permit to work audit. I tanya soalan ni. You buat kerja ni, what is your deliverable? Tak tahu? Buat je. So that becomes like a checkbox mentality kan. It's not. You need to know the outcome of your work. So bila saya dah buat welding ni kena cantik macam ni. This is good welding. So that is the outcome. Right? And from safety, from selok belok kerja, and then in terms of also the quality, the service, the deliverable, what I need. So it must be a person, seorang yang boleh ada tiga-tiga ni. That is competency. So bagaimana kita verify competency? Of course, we are very document-oriented function. So kita minta cert. Dah ada cert tu, maksudnya you dah competent. Saya pernah jumpa orang yang ada cert. Saya pernah jumpa, sad to say, orang yang ada green book. Saya pernah jumpa orang yang ada yellow book. They got the cert. Tapi bila tanya soalan tak boleh jawab. Kenapa? Sebab benda ni semua pun you achieve by documentation saja. You isi, you jawab exam kan. So these people can be very good in theory, tapi bila you put them at the application, dia tak boleh nak buat kerja. So competency cert, kalau kita tengok, kita juga kena tengok pada syllabus dia. Ada tak practical exam? Bukan knowledge saja, it must have practical exam. Boleh tak dia buat risk assessment for that particular? Mungkin I expert, I boleh buat HIRAC sebagai, so I can consult on HIRAC. Tapi bila I put you there, boleh tak you buat HIRAC in situ? Dekat sana. Tell me what is the hazard is there. So these are missing things. So competency is, you kena tahu selok-belok kerja ya. So macam the other day I was asking somebody about rigging. So I kata you angkat critical lifting ya. You angkat benda ni shape macam ni. You kata dalam you punya plan you ikat macam ni, fine. Macam mana you control swing hazard? Tak pernah fikir langsung. Dah sampai ke bahagian permit. This should be at the method statement tau. How do you control swing hazard? Yang paling bestnya dia tanya I balik, apa tu swing hazard? These are people with rigging and rigging competency tau. They ada cert. And this becomes, that's worrying. So competency, yes, we have to verify with cert, but we also have to verify dengan interview dia. Dia ni betul-betul tahu tak selok-belok kerja ni. So I tanya tagline, dia bawa rigging line. So they don't know what is a tagline. They don't know the difference between rigging line. So sadly to say, that's the situation yang kita adalah. Orang yang ada kompetensi ni, dia tak boleh nak kerja, apply apa yang dia belajar. That's very important. So bila kita buat competency verification, kita kena tengok ada tak practical dia punya syllabus tu. And boleh tak dia jawab certain critical answers. And the last one in competency, in safety, apa-apa kompetensi yang kita ada, dia kena tahu emergency response. Itu bukan safety ajar dia buat emergency response. A competent person akan tahu kalau ada emergency, apa saya perlu buat. That is competency. So tak payah pergi kerja kontraktor. Kita tengok pekerja kita sendiri. Dia handle chemical. You pergi interview dia. Apa kecemasan yang boleh berlaku bila you handle chemical ni? Kalau dia tak tahu, maksudnya dia tak kompeten. Tak cukup kompetensi dia. So dia tak ada satu knowledge, satu bahagian di mana dia boleh protect diri dia sendiri. Adakah dia akan cuba lap a corrosive material? Sebab biasa kita kata, oh, I akan lap. So dia akan automatically lap, lepas tu habis tangan. So benda-benda ni sebenarnya is the weakness in our safety systems. Tetapi kita biasa sebagai safety personnel, kita biasa look at documentation je. We are not going to the ground and solving the competency issues. And that's what competency means. They know. When you ask, they know. And I have worked with like site safety supervisors who know, and it's a dream talking to them. Tapi dia ada juga yang kes-kes yang malas ya. So dia malas nak buat sebab the control measure is complex gitu. So when you interview sampai ini tak ada, ini tak ada. Ini macam mana? Ini sebenarnya kena buat macam ni ma'am. Lepas tu tanya dia apa sebab tak buat. Hehehe dia. So it's cost, it's laziness, all that do come in. Tetapi sebagai kompetensi, it should be able to answer. And adakah orang kompeten ni, dia kena tahu lebih daripada orang safety. Kalau orang safety tahu lebih daripada dia, something is not right.
Focus.
Okay.
Okay, so there's a question from our guest. So when we are talking PTW, adakah safety department first perlu ada copy of PTW untuk kerja yang sedang berlangsung? Dan soalan kedua, macam panel kita cakap lah about the orang yang ada macam tu orang tu dia ada kompetensi. So dia tahu selok belok belok kerja, tapi apa yang still boleh menggagalkan konsep PTW ni?
So soalan pertama, first of all, sebagai orang safety, I urge this. Saya sarankan jangan tanya soalan documentation. Oh, bukan pada saya. I mean, in your mind, jangan fikir pasal documentation. Kalau saya tanya, I've asked this in many forums, many people. Kita selalu praktis yang ada permit to work, fine. Or they already gone to the next era, baguslah tu. Tapi orang yang masih guna paper ni, bila you tanya dia, berapa copy of a permit you ada? Ada depan belakang ada. Encik Arif, boleh tolong mute kan tak? Encik Arif. So kita akan selalu tanya, kita ada berapa copies of permit to work, kita ada carbon copy, kita kita guna a lot of money and a lot of time filling up this, filing this, keeping this. Tapi bila kita tanya, kenapa ada 3 kopi ni? Nobody can give a right answer. So benda ni dah ada dulu, kita ikut je. Oh, permit to work kena ada 3 kopi. Tapi kita tak pernah stop and think ya. Kita cakap orang kena stop and think, kita tak stop and think, kita tak stop and think dah tanya. Kenapa kita perlu 3 kopi ni? Apa sebenarnya fungsi 3 kopi ni? Lepas kata, oh kalau rekod original hilang, kita ada rekod. That's all the answer that I get. Which does not make sense. So saya tanya dia balik. Berapa permit to work yang pernah hilang dalam setahun ni? Sebab you hanya simpan permit to work one year only. Your pension pun 1 tahun pun. So that is something kita kena tanya diri sendiri. So kenapa safety can end? It's a very good question. Adakah sepatutnya safety simpan permit to work is not the question. Soalannya, kenapa? What is the reason? Apa sebab safety kena simpan kopi ni? Perlu tak? Dalam sistem saya, dalam culture saya, adakah prosedur ni sesuai dengan my situation? Safety kena simpan kopi. Kenapa? What is the reason? Kalau tak ada reason, ada sebab nak simpan, jangan simpan. The answer always goes back like that. So it is not about what you do with the document, it is what you do. Then you document. So it bukan apa you buat dengan dokumen tersebut, apa yang you buat, you dokumentkan. So kita kena tukar cara pemikiran kita. So don't worry about the document. Or dengan dokumen ni, I kena buat ni, then it becomes a document. So you bukan no more safety manager tau, you document controller. And a lot of safety people dah jadi document controller, bukan safety people already. So that would be my thoughts on whether safety should keep permit to work. There's no hard and fast rule. Soalan yang kita kena tanya, dalam proses saya, apa yang saya perlukan dan untuk mencapai keperluan tersebut, apa yang saya perlu ada? Berapa kopi permit to work kena ada? Di mana saya kena simpan? Itu adalah cara kita tengok documentation. Bukan, is it a hard and fast rule? So mestinya macam legal requirement pula. Permit to work kena ada 3 kopi, seorang simpan sini, seorang simpan sana.
Okay.
And the second question was, sabar terlupa pula dah.
Kalau kita cakap kita ada orang kompetent, contoh the contractor mention they have the competency, dia ada selok belok, tapi apa lagi faktor yang boleh menyebabkan permit to work ni gagal sebenarnya?
Dari segi kompetensi, daripada orang yang kompeten ni.
Ya, betul.
So dia dah ada cert, dia dah tahu semua selok-belok kerja. He's the best worker you can find. The last piece, So sebagai a skilled worker, okay, sebagai a competent worker, ia ada 3 je that you need to have. It's called ask. So the last one is knowledge. So ini yang kita tengok cert semua dia ada certification. Dia ada skill. Skill maksudnya dia tahu semua selok-belok kerja. The last one is what we call attribute ataupun attitude. So kalau dia dah tahu 2 ni, and we will find a lot of competent people yang the skill and the knowledge is very high. Tapi attitude dia jenis yang malas. Dia jenis yang suka ambil shortcut. Dia jenis yang don't care. Saya pernah jumpa satu contractor, arrogance. I know lah what I'm doing. I've been doing this for 25 years. Tapi bukan dia tak tahu how to work safely. Tapi sebab dia dah 20 years take shortcut, tak pernah get injury, the arrogance keeps building in. I do for 20 years, nothing has happened to me, right? So the last part is also important. So in my years of interviewing, masa interview safety personnel, I look for all 3. Bukan skill, bukan knowledge sahaja, tetapi also A. So kadang-kadang, and I have hired people with less S and K and more A. Kenapa? Sebab ni boleh train. Ini susah. By the time you change the attitude, it will take 3-4 years. In these 3-4 years, you can kill someone. So, skills and knowledge boleh train, Attitude you can't train, and that is the core. So, kenapa permit to work system fail is attitude. How do we approach this permit to work? Kalau kita approach, as I say, sekarang kita approach sebagai satu document as an approval document. Kalau kita approach benda ni, kalau okay, kontraktor kata, kalau company dah sign, okay, I happy, ada signature, I sign. Ada 10 signature, 10 pun I dah sign, I'm going in. That is the attitude yang kita ada terhadap dokumen tu. We are not respecting that document. So, bila kita dah tak respect dokumen tersebut, everything fails. Kita kena beri that it's a mandate tau. Mandat pada dokumen tu kita kena beri. Because that's a very strong document. Kalau you guna dengan cara yang betul.
Baik. So, Puan Panel, jika kita tengok kepada Malaysia culture, so based on your experience and observation, how do you see the PTW implementation in our industry?
Aduh, bukan kat Malaysia je. Right? So, even I've taken global roles, right? So, saya pernah audit Portugal. So, they are in Europe. I've audited Brazil. I've audited Lithuania, very Eastern Europe and things like that. And then you go as far as China, you go as far as Thailand. Everywhere is the same problem. It's the same problem where di mana diorang tengok permit to work ni sebagai dokumen lah. Sebagai it's like it's macam passport pula dah. They treat it like a passport. I got a passport, I can go in, I can travel internationally. Whether you criminal ke, tak kisah kan bila you ada passport. Correct? If you have a criminal record, who cares? You have a passport. So I can now get out of the country, I can travel the world and come back. So pemikiran tu kena ubah. So it's not only Malaysian culture, it is the industry problem. Di mana-mana. And that is how kita punya industry dah evolve. Kita punya industry dah evolve, and this is more on, adakah sebagai corporate culture, sebagai corporate culture, a capitalist culture ni, adakah betul-betul they really care about people safety? We have a transition. Kita start daripada safety ni, dia mula daripada mana? Dia mula daripada tempat di mana insurance cost become very high. So the insurers start complaining. Asyik-asyik kena bayar insurance sebab somebody lose the thumb lah, somebody hilang kaki lah, so I kena bayar insurance. So dia tengok macam mana saya nak reduce cost ni. So it is a financial point di mana safety start taking attention, di mana kita beri perhatian pada safety adalah mana titik permulaan dia. It was finance. So start dekat sana. So insurance people come in and say, okay, so kalau saya boleh prevent accident, saya boleh save money. So tengok dekat sana pun ada tak di mana-mana in that whole discussion tu, ada tak orang fikir, this is a human being that lost a finger, lost the eye. Tak ada. Right? And it didn't happen in Malaysia. This thing happened somewhere in US kan. So it's not about Western, Eastern culture. Tak ada. It's about the capitalist environment and the corporate environment. That culture is like that. So lepas tu kita evolve or prevention, and then it has always been not about the people, it has always been benefit to the company. Kalau saya buat safety, apa benefit kepada company? So selagi this exists in the corporate world, itu adalah challenge kita sebagai safety personnel. Itulah challenge dia. So selagi dia exist, it is a problem. So selagi they think safety is, sekarang sebab then became law, so government start going in. Kenapa government go in? So dia tengok, kalau saya ada workforce, saya perlukan workforce untuk I punya ekonomi. Tapi workforce I ni asyik kena injured, lepas tu duduk kat rumah. So my economy suffers because my workforce cannot do work. So I kena pastikan mereka boleh buat kerja, barulah ekonomi I okay. Is it again a human decision? No, it was an economical decision. So government pun sibuk lah buat law. Kan? So this is the reality. Ini adalah reality ya. Sad reality ke, happy reality ke, doesn't matter. Itu adalah reality safety industry. Which is why I memang always talk about humanizing safety. So mana-mana I pergi, hello, stop. Let's talk about the human there. So when people start, I ada dokumen ni, I kena record macam ni, I kena buat ni, adakah patut buat macam ni? I said, no, that's not what we are asking. We are asking, buat macam ni, what happens to the human there? Itu saja. So, we need to advocate that dekat tempat kerja. And kalau kita pun terbawa-bawa dengan culture corporate ni, yang di mana, finance is important, economy is important, it's a very big force. Kalau kita nak fight back, memang susah. It is tiring, but very fulfilling. So, culture ni lah yang sebenarnya menjadi masalah. And it's not Malaysian culture. It's not Asian culture. It is actually corporate culture.
Okay, so ada question daripada our participant. So from MJJ, so basically he actually asking about the JSA. Kita
Okay.
always cakap step by step, kerja step by step. Tapi siapa yang tengok on the risk?
Betul. Betul. So, apa tu JSA? It's a job safety analysis. So, kita kena ambil JSA, job safety analysis. So, biasanya orang buat job ada. Safety 50%, analysis tak buat. So, you're not fulfilling the intent of the document. Document tu sebenarnya there's a reason. Ada sebab kenapa dokumen tu exist. Ada sebab kenapa dokumen tu ada di tempat kerja. So again, dia pun dah jadi, okay, kalau saya ada satu dokumen dengan tajuk JSA, Job Safety Analysis, saya dah boleh, ia adalah satu prerequisite, requirement untuk saya buat permit. Cukuplah, file. That's why I say it's always ada dokumen, ada JSA, ada. Dah sign by safety, dah sign by orang ni, dah. Dia tengok atas, dia tengok bawah. Yang tengah-tengah tu, nobody sees. And kalau kita force that to be seen, we will fail. So job safety analysis ni, analysis tu kena buat lah. So masa kita we as safety people, bukan tiap-tiap permit kita kena pergi verify. Tapi kita kena pull up dan check sistem kita ni working not working. So kita pull up the JSA, kita tengok dia punya content. Kita jangan tengok siapa sign. Kadang-kadang kita ni pun satu, kita dah buka tu, kita tengok title, kita tengok siapa sign benda ni. We also you need to look at the content. So bila you tengok content, you tengok, okay, this is all the job step work. So bila you pergi audit, for example, you tanya dia, You sekarang kat step mana? Dia tengok macam tu maksudnya masalah. You have all the right to stop work. Bukan senang nak stop work lah. Nanti orang projek datang, I punya deadline, timeline. I say, I don't care. Dia tak pernah tengok dokumen ni. Maksudnya dia tak tahu konten mana ni. So you tulis satu, dia tengah buat something else. So I stop work. Sebab it is out of scope of permit conditions. So benda tu kena important. So ada orang tanya, JSA ke JHA? Inilah kita sebenarnya we name things different. So tomato, potato, this kind of things, right? So dia kata job safety analysis, I prefer personally daripada job hazard analysis. Sebab hazard maksudnya I just focus on the hazard. Tetapi kita sebagai safety personnel, kita kena fokus on risk, bukan hazard. Kalau kita buat hazard management, kerja tak payah buat langsung pun. Sebab I want to do elimination kan. Bila eliminate semua hazard, kerja pun tak jadi. But safety analysis, dia bagi a bit more flexibility where we manage the risk daripada kita manage the hazard. That's
Okay.
the
Yep. So, okay. Maybe saya nak baca balik lah soalan ni sebab mungkin saya punya interpretation salah. So the question is, many a times method statement mainly focus step by step in performing the job and never contain specific hazard risk if the critical step is not done properly. So what is your comment?
Okay. Ini sebenarnya, okay. It happens because bila saya tanya soalan ni pada orang yang tulis method statement, kepada orang yang sign off method statement, kepada orang yang verify method statement, what is a method statement? Soalan tu apa itu method statement? Tak boleh jawab. Tak boleh jawab maksudnya they don't understand apa tujuan kita ada method statement. Always go back to the purpose and always go back to the intent. So kalau method statement tu tak ada safety requirement, tak ada quality requirement, tak ada apa-apa requirement, tak ada deliverable, tak ada control measure, that is not a method statement. That is just writing job spec. So that is a job spec document, not a method statement. So kita kena clarify dulu apa tujuan method statement, apa content method statement kena ada. So saya bagi dulu satu contoh quality. Kita tak cakap pasal safety. I tanya, so dalam quality katakan saya nak campur bahan ke, I nak buat eksperimen ke, I kena tinggi. I kena timbang barang. So I tanya quality personnel, dalam setiap SOP you atau your test method, bila you kata timbang barang, you ada tak cakap check calibration of the weighing machine? Tak pernah cakap You pergi cari you punya quality document. Ada tak mana-mana dokumen kata verify or check the calibration date? Tak pernah cakap. So even quality procedure benda ni hilang. That means the procedure is incomplete. So sama lah method statement must say these things. What is your preparation? So what you can do, apa yang kita boleh buat adalah you come up with a template. Bila you ada template, then they are forced to fill up all this information. So template yang biasa I buat, I kata preparation work. So what are the things you kena prepare? Benda apa you kena ada? I need competency person. Ada tak semua competency? Take all the competency you perlu. Then you write your CIDP number ke apa, semua tulis. I need CIDP, I need working at height competency, I need electrical judgment, I need welding certification. Semua competency is a list. Then dia kena tick. Lepas tu dia kena cakap, where do I do loto? Sebab loto dah lupa. Dalam dia punya prosedur tak ada loto. So kita kena change the template to help people to think safely. Sebab memang kita tak think safely pun. And that is not the culture kan. So kita kena build system, bina system yang meet the culture and help people to think safely. Kita tak boleh marah dia. The culture, the environment doesn't encourage them to think safely. So gap is dia tak think safely. Macam mana kita boleh buat dia fikir benda-benda safety ni. So kita bagi satu template yang more of a guidance. So last time dia kata to wear proper PPE. I tak terima. I kata dalam procedure method statement, the word proper, nice, accordingly, semua tak boleh pakai. That is all banned words. So this is guideline. Dah cakap dah, you pakai ni, method statement terus reject. I jumpa satu perkataan proper, method statement reject. I won't check. So you kena bagi this kind of guidance. So bila dia kata wear glove, tak boleh. Guidance dia dah wear glove, what glove? If you say cut resistant glove, have you identified what cut resistant level? Ini adalah guidance. So kalau you prepare guidance macam ni untuk dia orang, then they will write, these are the information I kena masuk kat dalam. Then you also dengan automatically you ajar people, you teach people untuk kerja dengan selamat. I hope that answered the question.
Yep. Okay, so there's one keyword lah that you mentioned is about stop work. So actually this is question from me lah. So the first question is who actually authorized for stop work? And in case we raise the stop work but there's a violation on that. So what is the next step actually?
Okay. Pasal stop work ni, apa yang jadi dengan personnel safety ni, kita bukan polis tau. Kita bukannya ada all the authority nak barge in, nak masuk dan kita stop work macam kita ni full terror betul. So sometimes we go in like that with that mindset, right? I have done it also. Sampai marah je tengok dia orang ni, stop work, marah benar. But when you go macam tu, you are not solving the problem. Sebab cara kita buat tu nampak macam kita cari kesalahan orang lain, right? Kalau safety ni tu cari salah je. So, masa kita stop work tu, our approach must be, siapa you cari? You cari supervisor dia. You jangan pergi stop work unless it's extremely dangerous. I pernah, because I stay down, I tak boleh tahan. By the time I cari supervisor, I tak tahu apa dia buat. I just scream, I say, first, I say, stop. You can. Tapi lepas tu, jangan marah. First, find the supervisor. Lepas tu kata, I found this thing. Bincang dengan dia. Lepas tu, you kena report benda ni. Pada siapa? Project owner. Then, I said, I have stopped the work. Now come, we need to discuss because we need to start the work back. Biasanya kita dah stop work, I don't care. Okay, you solve problem ni, lepas tu kita jalan. Kalau kita tak take the initiative to involve dalam perbincangan tersebut, mereka akan rasa tertekan. Satu side management come and finish the project. Safety come, stop work. Then dia dekat middle tau, dia sandwich. Not easy being project manager. Kalau pernah pegang tahu, very difficult. Right? Tapi masa kita stop work, kita jangan just stop work and say, now this is your problem. I already told you, it's in your permit to work, it's in your method statement, tapi korang just tak ikut. We cannot do that. We kena kata, bawa project manager, bawa safety supervisor and say, now, I know you need to start work. Kalau you nak start work balik, benda ni semua ada. Kena ada. Kalau benda ni semua, masa you plan, yes, it was there. Tapi hari ni, ada masalah, you tak jumpa benda-benda ni, or you tak ada resources to do this, kita boleh tukar. That's the reason you have permit to work anyway. In situ, you boleh tukar. I say, okay, for today, sebab benda ni semua dah tak ada, this is my alternative way of doing work safely. Have this, start work. Lepas tu kata, but we have to plan for tomorrow. Besok tak boleh, hari ni I bagi you jalan. Tapi tomorrow onwards cannot. Tomorrow onwards you must be back to normal. So macam mana? So this is the discussion yang kena ada. Bukan marah sebab tak ikut procedure, memang tak ikut pun, memang kita marah pun. Tapi how we handle it is much better. So respond kita matter. How we respond is matter. But that shouldn't stop you from stopping work. Kalau unsafe, stop. Because at the end of the day, it's that human being. Not anything else. It's not about money. It's not about profits and all that. Kalau dia seorang meninggal dunia, the company no need to talk about money already lah. Nak cakap sangat pasal money, you can't. So that is one of the things. The most difficult part of this is if your management don't agree with you. Itu come back to our influential skill lah. I said, okay. So kalau, and why management don't agree with you is because they always see you as a troublemaker. So you kena tukar you punya approach as a collaborator. Not say, come, what can we do next? What we do tomorrow? So now you're no more troublemaker. You're just making things correct. And you still allow work to run. Not stop for 2 weeks. Mampuslah kau nanti menjawab. That doesn't look collaborative. You kena approach collaboratively.
Yep. Fully agree on that. One question, so is there any comprehensive format for the PTW that we can cover all of the aspect? Do we have any specific format, or it still depend to the organization?
It depends on the organization. So, not depend on the organization. It depends on you sebagai safety personnel. Sebab kalau global, your global safety don't mandate. Dia tak kata, okay, this is company ABC, this is our standard permit to work format. And inilah you kena guna. Then you have no choice. You have to use that format. Kalau that thing tak ada, they just say a permit to work kena ada benda ni. Itulah dia punya standard, tapi dia tak mandate the format. Ataupun dia kata ini adalah format, salah satu format yang you boleh guna, you may use, bukan shall use. So you boleh buat permit to work sendiri and design satu permit to work yang works for you. So there was, in my experience, and this one I challenge macam terlebih-lebih I challenge, is yang 3 kopi tu, I said scrap that system. I terus scrap. The company doesn't have 3-ply permit to work anymore. Tak ada. Scrap. Lepas tu kita buat permit A4 paper, both side printed. So satu piece. And kita combine permit. So I know that dalam company ni, kalau biasa permit yang selalu saya kena issue working at height, permit yang selalu saya kena issue adalah work. So kenapa I kena ada multiple permit clip sini masa tu cari stationery lah, macam-macam masalah kan. Combine. Sebab ini adalah paling common. So these 3 permits selalu go together in this company. And then tukar sistem tu. Sebab apa komplain daripada permit issuer? You kena dengar apa dia cakap ya. I'm on the ground. So dalam ground ni, ini adalah masalah saya sebagai permit issuer. Ini adalah masalah saya sebagai permit acceptor. Then solve that problem. So dia orang kata, Syamini, ya Allah berjela-jela, I kena tulis. Setiap hari I kena tulis. So we made it as a checklist. So checklist apa bahaya dia? Dia duduk, dia tik. So you use what? You use a format di mana dia tak boleh dia kena dari sini, pergi sini, pergi sini, pergi sini. So dia kena fikir. And you don't design checklist yang dia kena baca. We also included images, signages daripada words. And so you kena design your permit to work that works for your people. Bukan kecuali global mandate kata this is the one, you cannot use any other format, you have no other choice. Tapi itu pun I pernah challenge juga. So I have used it as a cover page. Lepas tu I attach other things that make it easy. Lepas tu tulisan see attach. I also have done that. So it's how you work around the system.
Yep. But there's a concern how actually we can make the PTW is more practical without making it too easy to bypass actually.
This is okay. Remember the A? Kita tak boleh design satu document to control people's integrity. No way. You tak boleh buat lotto system to control people punya integrity. When you want, bila kita sebagai safety personnel move our focus from risk kepada integrity, kita ada masalah lah. Because then we won't be designing system to control risk, kita design system to control integrity. So from a safety personnel, kita jadi police, kita jadi lawyer, kita jadi benda lain. And that's not right. So never design system kecuali security system, itu lain cerita, they are safety people. We don't design system for integrity. You don't control integrity through forms. Tak pernah ya. Don't do that. You demand integrity through audits. You demand integrity through process confirmation. You demand integrity through consequence management. Ini cara you demand integrity. Don't demand integrity in your form. Your form should not be designed that way. That it will never work because it's not a risk assessment form anymore. Dia bukan satu borang di mana kita buat analisa risiko anymore. It becomes a lawyer's form. It becomes a confession form. So we need to be a little bit careful. What is the intent of that form? Never control integrity through your forms. Ada cara lain nak control integrity.
Bila cakap ada cara untuk control integrity, so boleh macam explain further?
Okay.
Yep.
Number one, sebagai safety personnel, pernah tak kita duduk berbincang dengan HR consequence management? Pernah tak? Do you know, adakah kita tahu consequence management policy dan prosedur mengenai safety, violation ke deviation ke, that is written by HR. Sebab itu adalah policy HR. It's not our policy. Adakah kita tahu? I can guarantee you many people tak pernah pun tengok dokumen tu. Masa kita join, kita sign satu dokumen. What is major misconduct, minor misconduct. Tapi can we tell offhand? Tak ada. Number one. So consequence management. Sit with HR, outline what is a safety violation, what is a safety deviation, what is minor, major, and gross misconduct. You need to have consequence management as one. Kena strongly ada. Kalau ni tak ada, you susah nak implement integrity tau. Because we're speaking about integrity. Because kita tak talk about anything else. Now, when you have a strong consequence management system, this is collaboration dengan HR. You bekerjasama dengan HR. And outline. Right? Lepas tu, you need to do what? Kalau UTPM, dia panggil process confirmation. Kalau bahasa kita yang biasa, kita buat audit ataupun kita buat permit inspection. So what is your cadence? Apa you punya jadual? You as a person. I say every Monday, I pergi audit permit. Ataupun you boleh introduce permit audits sebagai satu leadership KPI. You need to audit at least 2 permits a month. Dan ajar dia orang audit permit lah. So when they go and audit the permit, benda-benda ni akan keluar. Integrity is the fastest you can catch. Okay, bypass. Apa sama bypass? Consequence management. This is the connection. So that is how you manage integrity, not through your forms. Your form is not to catch people or to control people. Your form is to manage risk. You kena faham intention of your permit to work. So kerja safety ni bukan pasal safety je tau. You need to work with a lot of department. You have to work with procurement, for example. Kalau contractor tu hari-hari jenuh je deal dengan dia, go to procurement and say, I want this fellow out of my company right now. Do something about it. What do I need to do? What do we need to do to get this contractor out? Sebab dia ni banyak masalah. I don't want him anymore. Boleh. But it's working with other departments. Integrity is not for you to manage.
Yep, fully agree, and I believe this is something new lah yang I belajar lah sebenarnya. So, okay, when we are talking about the PTW, contohnya macam saya dulu di QA, kita buat validation, purpose dia in case ada customer complain. So kita boleh refer back dekat spec apa yang kita validate. Tapi bila kita buat PTW ni, apart from kita nak ubah culture sekadar tanda, sekadar fill up, apa sebenarnya kepentingan PTW ni dalam kerja sebenarnya? Apa yang dia protect sebenarnya?
Okay. Kalau nak kata protect itu, remember it's a record. So, kita sekarang fokus sebagai fungsi yang kita buat sekarang ni hanya sebagai record. Record di mana jika ada investigation, ada buat risk assessment, ada issue permit, okay. So, company sudah buat all the due diligences. Apa yang company kena buat, dia dah buat. Maksudnya ni salah worker lah ni. So, that is one form of protection yang kita guna permit to work untuk protect company jika ada apa-apa incident investigation. Tetapi itu je jadinya. Sekarang yang benda lain semua dah hilang. Benda yang betul-betul penting dah hilang. We start thinking about protecting the company. Dah buat risk assessment, dah issue permit ke, dah ikut prosedur ke, sebab takut nanti ada investigation ke, macam mana? But the actual core, apa yang ada at the core, apa yang ada kat sana, kat tengah-tengah, really you thinking about is, number one, it is a risk assessment document. It assesses the risk in situ. Sebab bila you tulis JSA ke, you tulis method statement ke, it is the risk about the job. Lepas tu, your permit to work is assessing the risk of the area interacting with the job. So kalau I nak repair aircon, that is my job. When I repair aircon and the compressor is 6 feet up, the risk is different. And that's where the permit to work come in, and now you have to issue working at height permit. So it is a risk assessment in situ. Now my job, in combination with the risk in the area and the risk of me performing the job. Maybe I have to do roof work, then it becomes compressor semua on the roof. Then it becomes roof work. It's no more repairing or servicing aircon. It is roof work. And roof work, you tak boleh, I think about the hazard yesterday, 3 months ago. It has to be done in situ because what is the weather condition today? Got lightning or not? Got enough lighting or not? Kan nak buat kerja malam pula. Tak ada lampu atas roof. So this is what the permit to work is. And it is number 2, a communication document. You use it sebab you dah identify the hazard, you dah identify cara untuk buat kerja dengan selamat. This is your toolbox document. SOP toolbox you adalah ini. Orang buat toolbox mula-mula buat exercise lah. Lepas hari ni kita buat kerja ni ya. Lepas tu you kena pakai PPP ni ya. Buat toolbox pun, you don't talk about the work today. You don't talk about the risks and the hazards today. So bila kita pergi buat permit process confirmation, I call the worker today, hari ni toolbox stop, apa dia cakap? Dia tak boleh jawab. Dia jawab benda yang dia cakap lah. Oh, kita buat exercise. Dia suka dengan exercise tu ya. Lepas tu at the end of the day, kita buat gambar tape pula. Lepas tu send people back. That doesn't help. That is one thing kita kena fikir. How we do our toolbox talk. What is the content of your toolbox talk? And toolbox talk, kalau you cerita benda yang sama tiap-tiap hari, dia bukan aja tu pun, dia dah melayang ke mana entah. I berdiri sini sebagai evidence yang I attend toolbox talk. Tapi minda semua tak tahu ke mana. So that is more important than the document itself.
Yep. So kita ada 2 soalan daripada our participants. So the first question, okay, kadang-kadang implementing strict consequences management in company with poor safety culture and time-bound activities, won't it be a counterproductive to the company? Example is stifle work progress. So what is your recommendation if faced with this situation?
So, you see, macam ni lah. I give you a scenario where you bukannya ambulance staff. And you are rushing to the hospital. But you are not the ambulance, You are bringing someone to hospital and you need to rush sebab kalau you tak rush, the person can die. And you langgar lampu merah. Salah tak salah? Salah. Kalau kena tangkap, kena saman tak saman? Kena saman. So that doesn't justify, oh, because it's an emergency, so I break the rule. It doesn't justify at all. Sebab bila you langgar lampu merah, you may cause another accident. Lepas tu dua-dua you kena bawa pergi hospital. Or bila you langgar lampu merah, anybody else can hit you. So instead you pergi hospital, you naik terus ke atas. So there is no excuses to say that, oh, it is poor safety culture. So in a poor safety culture environment, I cannot do consequence management. Actually kan, in a poor safety culture environment, consequence management is your strongest. Kalau tak, you tak boleh buat safety. Because you have to start managing with fear before you can manage with compassion. So the culture is like that. You kena manage setiap safety, you kena manage, you kena develop system that fits the culture. So you cannot, I want to have a very mature system and a system based on trust, a system based on this, tapi you punya safety culture is very reactive, don't care. Tak boleh, dia doesn't gel. Bila system tu tak gel, you won't achieve the result. So consequence management, no excuses. You break the rule, you break the rule. And that is the point you start. In a poor safety culture, that is where you start. I work in a company, and I always remember this. Di mana you have to hold handrail, sebab holding handrail comes under dia punya 5 life saving standards. So dia punya 5 life standards, one is fall protection. Dia tak kata working at height, dia kata fall protection. So salah satu rule dalam fall protection adalah to hold handrail. That's it. Sebab dia LSS, dia life saving standard. All life saving standard, kalau kita jumpa, you will be terminated. Tak payah fikir, zero tolerance. Don't need to talk, So kalau kita see you not holding handrails, I can report you to the and you can be terminated. That is managing with fear. But what I learned is, sampai sekarang, jumpa mana-mana tangga, cari handrail dulu. It just became a habit because the culture was like that. Kalau you tak buat consequence management, tak ada orang akan pegang handrail pun. So it is a balance. When you do consequence management, apa masalah you sebenarnya adalah sometimes you lose very skilled workers. And that's your problem. Dia kata, oh, I'm losing talent. I say, a talent which is not safe is not a talent. Itu you kena always bring forward. So what people think is talent is only S and K, A tak ada. And S and K only the work. Safety is not a skill. Safety is not a knowledge. People evaluate. So you kena bring that awareness. Kena bawa awareness tu dalam you punya management. If he cannot work safe, dia tak boleh bekerja dengan selamat, maksudnya dia bukan competent worker. You must stress this. And you kena stress sampai penat. Pun kena stress lagi. You have to hold your ground. Memang kena hold ground.
Fully agree. So we have another question from our participant. So PTW dah ada, method statement dah ada, tapi pekerja tak tahu isi kandungan. So maksudnya dokumen ni kita shot sendiri ke? Kerja sendiri ke?
Memang shot sendiri sebab the reason that JSA ataupun method statement tu exist is sebab it is a requirement. It is a requirement. Kalau nak kahwin, you kena buat blood test. I ada blood test, all pass, I boleh kahwin. So it's like sebab the method statement tu is treated macam requirement lah, prerequisite. Bukan sebagai satu dokumen yang penting yang ensure I kerja dengan selamat. That is where the whole problem is. So kalau you safety, so what I did was, kita sebenarnya tak payah buat kerja ni pun. But if you want to educate, this is cultural issue kan. So you want to educate, you letak gate, you letak control. So method statement you, I tak verify, you tak boleh kerja. So masa kita verify method statement, asyik reject je lah. Just keep on rejecting. Sebab ini tak ada, ini tak ada, ini tak ada, ini tak ada. So, kalau I reject 2 kali, the third time, I don't reject. I kata, I want you to sit with me. I ask you question, you write your method statement. So, when you do with them, 2-3 kali, the fourth time, fifth time, dia dah belajar dah. Dia tahu, okay, kalau benda ni semua I tak masuk kan, nanti I kena reject. Nanti I lagi banyak kerja. Lepas tu I kena duduk depan Syamini, kena marah. So, it is motivating them slowly. You tak boleh change overnight. But you kena strong lah. And you have to do a lot of work which is not our work. Sebagai contoh, verify method statement, duduk dengan diorang, counselling diorang, ajar diorang. Sebab kadang, you dah kerja 20 tahun, benda ni pun nak kena ajar you. You memang kena ajar. And you say that this is requirement, without this, work cannot start. Tapi sebelum tu, you kena collaborate dengan engineering. Jangan pergi buat macam ni, lepas tu kita cakap dengan you punya engineering dan maintenance department. Kata, moving forward, this is what I'm going to do. So please give me the method statement dan JSA ni. Jangan besok nak kerja, hari ni bagi, nanti kan kerja tergedala. Please prepare 2 weeks earlier supaya kita boleh duduk berbincang. This is how you work, the collaboration.
Yep, fully agree. So we have another interesting question for me. So the question is, Madam, boleh ke saya dapatkan pendapat Madam, bagaimana pula dengan hazard supernatural, hantu, kepada workers pada waktu malam? Ada tak cara nak tangani? Sebab my workplace previously had this issue, however, it was left just like that because tak tahu dah nak buat apa lagi. But for me, this is a valid question.
I pun pernah nampak, pernah jumpa, pernah rasa. Memang ada. Okay? Buatlah semayang tu. Cakap, ini kita kena slow-slow cakap dengan HR. Kata benda ni ada. So kita kena buat semayang, buat an organized one. Kena. Jangan pula cari bomo ke apa ke. Semayang lah. That is the only thing. So you ask HR to arrange for something. So kalau memang dah jumpa, memang ada. Memang ada tempat kerja ada. Ada yang suka duduk atas silo lah. Macam-macam mereka jumpa. Yes. The thing is, jangan tinggalkan macam tu ya. Sebab it's a belief system. And in my belief, I also believe it exists. Ada orang percaya benda tu tak ada. Kan? So, you slow talk dengan HR lah. Slow talk dengan HR, slow talk dengan management. Right? And semayang. You have to. Sembahyang bukan nak halau dia ke, itu tempat dia ya. Dia nak duduk, apa kita nak buat. Tapi sembahyang supaya dia tak kacau kita.
Agree. So we have another question, okay, talking about in situ risk. Most risks, about 90% for the job, should have been addressed during the JSA HIRAC. But what if an unexpected hazard pose a risk during the activity? What is your recommendation if faced with this situation?
Benda ni, every day will happen. So it's not something that happens unexpected or once in a while ya. Semasa tengah buat kerja, sebab bila you duduk on the desk, dekat meja dan tengah imagine the work. So kalau people used to this concept of HOP kan, HOP principle, you akan tahu this term. Work as imagined and work as done. Memang akan lain. And that is the natural part of any work. Mana-mana work lah. SOP dengan cara kerja tu dibuat memang akan ada deviation. Memang akan ada. What we imagine and what happens memang lain. That is the reason you ada permit to work. To do the in situ risk. Right? Tapi kita juga manusia ya. Kita hanya boleh imagine. Sebab kerja tu belum jadi lagi. So that is why, remember in between, you kena audit you punya permit. So permit issuer kena pergi tengok. This was the permit condition yang I agree. Dah 2 jam kerja ni okey ke tak okey ni? Ke ada benda berubah? Ada ke benda yang kita tak nampak? Sebab semasa buat kerja, you akan jumpa benda-benda lain. So that is the reason you need to audit your permit. Dan permit acceptor got this role ya. Kalau dalam semua permit condition yang you dah discuss tapi benda ni tak ada, they should not continue work. Dia kena panggil balik permit issuer. Mungkin kerja tu boleh jalan balik lah. Dia kena call permit issuer say, I jumpa benda baru ni. So add it back into your permit to work. So that's why you got work supervisor and you got permit acceptor. Dia kena ada kat sana. So setiap perubahan tu dia boleh manage in situ. So dia boleh manage the perubahan. Dia call permit issuer. Dia kata, okay, I jumpa benda ni. Ini dah kita buat. Okay, come, I need to inform you. Lepas tu, record. Itu je.
Okay, there's another question from our participant. Siapa yang seharusnya buat high-rec ni?
Orang yang buat kerja. That's the answer, ya. So they always say safety kena buat high-rec kan. Safety lah pandai buat kerja, ya. Kita terror, pakai gaji kena tinggi, ya. Kalau macam tu, it's not se-high-rec tu, this is where competency yang jadi isu ni. Sebab orang yang buat kerja ni, tak tahu buat kerja dengan selamat. So bila dia buat high-rec, kau jumpa tu, rasa menyampah dia baca dokumen tu. But that's the thing. It's a competency issue. So siapa patut buat high-rec? Siapa yang mempunyai kompetensi untuk atau tahu kerja tu sepenuh-penuhnya. Orang tu lah patut buat high-rec. Bukan safety, bukan orang yang buat kerja. Orang yang betul-betul faham selok-belok kerja tersebut dan orang yang mempunyai kompetensi untuk menganalisa the safety portion, the risiko dalam kerja tersebut. That is the right person. Adakah person tu supervisor? So jangan ambil ni sebagai title. Oh, dia punya triple S kena buat, dia punya supervisor lah kena buat, dia punya management lah kena buat, dia punya SHO lah kena buat. Tak. It's not a title. It is a person. So sometimes certain high-rec ni you perlukan 3-4 orang untuk buat as together sebab kerja tu kompleks. And that's the answer. Siapa bertanggungjawab untuk memastikan high-rec tu dibuat, itu management company tersebut. Department head of that company. Department head of that department. Itu adalah tanggungjawab dia. Dia kena pastikan high-rec tu ada. Tapi high-rec tu seorang buat ke, 3 orang buat ke, dia kena cari orang yang mempunyai kompetensi lah. Ataupun panggil 2 orang. Panggil orang yang competent in safety, panggil orang yang buat kerja, discuss sekali, buat high-rec. High-rec is not an individual responsibility. Tak boleh, tak ada high-rec yang I boleh seorang syok-syok sendiri buat.
Yep, fully agree. Kalau buat seorang, dia jadi shot sendiri, then on paper only. Alright, so kita ada next question. Okay, kalau toolbox stock dibuat setiap hari tapi near miss masih berulang, adakah masalah pada kualiti penyampaian toolbox ataupun pemahaman pekerja, especially kalau kita ada foreigner ataupun kawalan risiko yang tak mencukupi?
Okay, let me touch base on foreigner. Sebab kita ada satu mindset yang foreigner ni, kita, and this is something I notice lah, kita selalu look down upon the foreigner. Dia adalah labourer dan dia adalah skilled labourer sebenarnya. Kalau dia bukan skilled labourer, you hire dia, you pun ada masalah. Itu membawa orang yang tidak berkompetensi untuk bekerja. So kita kena pastikan semua worker, tak kira foreign ke, tak foreign ke, dia ada skill untuk buat kerja tersebut. Itu satu. Lepas tu, don't think that the foreign worker is lesser than your local worker. No. Actually, you punya foreign worker is more compliant than your local worker. Local worker, dia akan tanya you 10,000 soalan sebab dia tak nak buat kerja. Foreign worker, dia tak akan tanya you soalan, dia ikut arahan. So persoalan di mana you ada near miss ni sebab arahan yang diberi dengan adalah mencukupi. So bila you kata dia biasa buat grinding. So you bagi arahan bahawa you potong you cut this thing you cut this pipe sebab kita fikir dia dah beribu kali buat benda ni, kita tak beri arahan dengan sepenuhnya. So kalau macam tu toolbox stock you kan berpanjangan tau. So that is not the point to educate the person. The point to educate is before he start work. Sebelum dia boleh diterima sebagai seorang pekerja. That is the point. That is what we call safety training. Bukan duduk cakap pasal rules and regulation. You cakap pasal dia punya kerja. If his work is to grind, is to cut pipe, you kena beritahu. Kalau you pakai grinder, the disc, how do you check the disc? Is it according to the RPM? Macam mana you match? Handle tu jangan buka. Kalau you kena buka handle, you datang jumpa saya dulu. Sebab dia orang suka buka handle dan buat grinding. Lepas tu dia buka handle, dia pegang pipe in one hand, dia grind in another hand. Itu bukan cara pakai grinder yang betul. So you kena ajar dia as we go along. Dan the problem with foreign worker adalah, you kata communication breakdown kan? You speak Malay or English dan dia punya pemahaman bahasa tu tak betul. Atau tak mencukupi. So you demo. It's physical. Doesn't work verbal ya. I tengok toolbox talk kan, tak pernah pun ada orang pegang. Hari ni punya topik for toolbox, kita talk about harness. Pernah you bawa harness and say, this is D-ring, this is this, this is this, this is this. Tak pernah. You kena beritahu dia, ini kita panggil D-ring. So masa next time bila cerita D-ring, dia tahu benda tu D-ring. Ini shock absorber. Dia cerita. Ini adalah dia punya sesawang. Sesawang ni, you kena check, tengok, ini ada jahitan. So when you point, they will learn. Kalau you cakap verbal, nothing works. Toolbox talks, please don't be verbal. You kena ada demo sikit. And daily you talk about one thing. Today, I'm going to demo harness. Tomorrow, I'm going to demo grinder. Tomorrow, I'm going to talk about a table saw. Tomorrow, an anchorage point. So, pick a topic. One safety topic that you want to educate them. Lepas tu, the scope of the day and all that. So, you akan kurangkan near miss as you go along. You tak boleh hari ni I bagi toolbox, 0 near miss today because I'm doing effective toolbox. It doesn't work that way.
Okay, when we are talking about the foreign worker, usually kalau kita tengok daripada current market, kita punya contractor ni actually banyak dia punya staff actually foreign worker. So macam mana dalam PTW ni, macam mana kita nak make sure all these foreign worker memang tahu selok belok kerja dia, instead of supervisor dia je yang tahu?
Okay, sebenarnya you tak boleh bawa pekerja yang tak tahu kerja. Dia sebenarnya tahu kerja, right? Tetapi dia dilatih dengan cara kerja yang salah. That's the whole point. Sebab he learn on the job, right? So bila dia datang sini, dia kerja sebagai labourer, they learn on the job. So jika daripada pertama tu, dia diajar dengan cara kerja yang salah, so jadilah near miss. Sebab dia apa yang dia belajar tu dah salah. So bila kita jumpa near miss tu, we need to correct his knowledge. Bukan skill tu dia ada. We have to correct his knowledge. Actually, this is not the correct way to do. Ini cara kerja yang betul. Dan abang, daripada hari ni, kalau dia tu foreign worker, you can call him bayar hari ni. Daripada hari ni, jangan buat ni ya. Ini tak okay, you kena buat macam ni. And you need to reinforce. Maksudnya, dah cerita dengan dia hari ni, besok you kena datang balik dan tengok. I ingat lah. I tak nak tengok macam ni ya. Be kind. Don't scold. Don't think they're lesser than you. That is very important, the mindset. And
Alright.
is it work? Bukan. You can do, but it's the supervisor's work. So you need to hold the supervisor. You need to educate the supervisor macam mana nak cakap dengan foreign worker. Bukan syek marah. And they treat them very badly. And that is where the point of mistake happens. Kalau you dah treat them badly, you lose trust. And the moment you lose trust, you cannot educate anyone anymore. So near miss tu akan sampai bila tak habis. Saya akan marah supervisor yang don't treat workers properly. And I have also said, I don't want this supervisor anymore. I want him out. I want someone who respects people. You can. Actually, safety, you got all these authorities tau, tapi kita takut nak guna. Panggil je kontraktor punya management, kata, you tukar supervisor, dia ni macam ni, I tak nak. That's it. So you asked, right, one of the question is, adakah ia kawalan risiko yang tak mencukupi? Yes, the supervisor is not doing his work. hold the supervisor responsible. Kena ya?
Yep. So kita ada last 3 question. So soalan pertama, secara teknikal bila MOS berubah ataupun skop kerja bertukar, high-rec ni pun perlu dikemaskini juga ke? And ataupun high-rec ni boleh evergreen sampai audit seterusnya sebab dalam JD tulis high-rec review annual basis. So what is your comment?
Okay, ini balik kepada SOP yang salah. Okay, so high-rec is technically a live document. Right? High-rec adalah live document. So bila you dah buat your hazard identification risk assessment and you determine you punya risk control tu you dah determine, kalau scope kerja change, dia punya risiko berubah betul. So this one has to be a reverse PDCA. High-rec adalah P kan, lepas tu you jadi A. Tetapi bila skop kerja tukar dan MOS tukar, you tak boleh tunggu sampai high-rec update baru I nak buat, right? You make those changes, so you implement the control. You implement control immediately. Nanti you stop kerja, you yang kena marah, right? Sal document. Don't stop work because of document, Have an agreement. Okay, moving forward, scope dah tukar. MOS ni kena tukar. So, ini adalah the new way kita kerja. Start kerja, ambil benda ni, update JSA, update MOS, update high-rec. Jangan tunggu nak update MOS, update high-rec baru start kerja balik. So, the PDCA tu dia circle. PDCA is around. You boleh start kat mana-mana pun. You can start with D, you can start with C, you can start with A, you can start with P. Tapi kalau belum apa-apa kerja, kita kena start dengan P lah.
Yep.
Yeah, annually ni pun is wrong. So, that is confirmed wrong, right? I would suggest kalau you nak review high-rec, review every 3 years once. You buat annually, you jenuh je buat kerja tak pasal-pasal. You don't expect things to change in 1 year. Takkan. You punya hazard tu takkan ubah banyak sangat pun. Tetapi bila ada incident, bila ada change. So ini dalam MOC kena ada. Management of change. So bila ada change, bila ada incident, you tak payah review the entire high-rec. You pergi to that process, review the risk. Adakah you punya risk tu masih sama dan you kena ubah saja control measure ataupun you punya risk dah meningkat, lepas tu you kena add more control measure. Turning that portion you review and update the document. Tapi these two kena ada, so dia bukan annually. My advice is do it 3 years once. Tetapi jika ada perubahan, change through MOC ataupun ada incident yang kena buat. Incident termasuk semua near miss yang you jumpa. Incident termasuk you punya analisa of unsafe condition. Kan dia ada report unsafe condition selalu? You take this and you analyse. What is my major risk right now? So di mana-mana saya ada 4 risk, I pergi tengok I punya high-rec, I update all my 4 risks. That is what you do annually. Bukan the whole document. Annually, you just see your feedback. Daripada you punya near miss, you punya incident, dan you punya unsafe act. For example, behavior, what are the signals? Then you just go and update those portions of the high-rec.
Alright, so the next question is how to deal with worker yang otai ni dah cukup makan garam tapi still practice unsafe work after the toolbar, after the safety induction. How to handle actually?
Okay, jangan marah. Jangan marah. Okay? You jangan marah dia masa dia tengah buat kerja. Right? Unless it's very, very dangerous, he's going to lose a finger, itu cerita lain. Stop work ni, you kena tahu bila. So, you dah jumpa dia. You beritahu supervisor dia. You jangan pergi cakap dengan dia. You beritahu supervisor dia. I say, you go and say, this is the permit condition. You pergi cakap dengan dia. And ask to work safely. Lepas tu, masa tea break kan. Masa coffee break. Masa smoke break. Masa lunch break. You duduk, you need to build relationship. Dengan otai, kalau you tak build relationship, you can never get through to them. Build the relationship and then start talking about this. Just now, I saw you doing this. Bang, mana boleh macam ni, bang? Abang Sal, kenapa jadi macam ni? Abang tak, kalau hilang mata tu macam mana? Then you call in a discussion. then you listen to his side of the story. So when orang otai ni, they want to be heard. That's very important. So number one, you need to build relationship with them. And you need to sit and talk, not when they're doing work. Sebab masa dia tengah buat kerja, kau kena kacau kerja dia tension. You call and you talk to them later. Unless it is very high risk, stop. There was no choice. That's something you can tolerate. Okay, this one I need to see. I can berbincang lah nanti. And remember, yang the one that we very scared to do, consequence management. Kena ada. During the escape, sebab tak pernah ada consequence management. Nobody takes action on them. When you start taking action, things will change. Use both sides, ya. Budi bicara dengan consequence management. You need to use both.
Yep. So we have last two question. Okay, there's a question. Okay, most of the approach ni banyak towards spend time to educate worker on safety. But what to do kalau kita ni tak cukup resources? What is your suggestion?
Very interesting. So when you don't have time, you have to create time. Kita ada 24 hours, mana nak create time? Where do you create time? Kita sebenarnya sebagai safety professional ni, kita duduk dan buat kerja non-value added work. Sebab kita develop dan bina sistem yang terlalu kompleks, yang memerlukan banyak attention daripada kita, untuk tunjuk kita buat kerja, tapi sebenarnya tak ada value pun langsung. So I would suggest, time is a precious resource, memang resource. So your objective is to create time for yourself. So bila you nak create time for yourself, you kena look at where your time is going. Where is my time going? And am I spending time on value-added work or nonsense work? Kadang-kadang kata, I need to sit and write this document. Really? Sometimes kita kena question balik tau. Really need to do this? Can I not consolidate this and do it on a weekly basis instead of daily basis? Betul ke kena buat daily? Betul ke kena buat weekly? Is this such an important report I kena buat monthly? Is it a quarterly report? Fikir balik. Are we really doing value-added work? Where does our time go? Lepas tu you akan tengok, most of the time you akan spend time here, spend time there. Review the efficiency of that process that is taking your time. So sekarang you tak deal with safety anymore. This is your personal. You need to do it for yourself. You're going to look at that. These are all the things. These are my time stealers. These steals my time. And you build efficiency into that system. Kalau you tak boleh buat sendiri, you kena get some expert consultations who can do this for you. But not everybody are system professionals or system experts, right? Tapi bila you dah buat analisa ni, you can go and you can ask for advice, free consultation, mentoring, and say that I'm spending a lot of time on non-value. And kalau you dah buat analisis ni, you bawa pergi you punya boss. You say, I'm spending so much time on non-value added work. I want to spend time on value added work. This one, I think we need to look into it. You can say, kalau you know the term FTE, full-time equivalent. So sometimes you ada staff in a different department who is at 0.5 ataupun 0.8 tau. That means they got 20% or 0.2 FTE free actually, which you can share. Can you share admin club, for example? Engineering and safety share one admin club. One day a week, she is my admin club. 4 days a week, kau jadi engineering. This is all the collaborations that you can do. So you need to create time for yourself. That is what I mean. And the reality is, if you think you want 8 to 5, itu bermimpi je lah. Yeah? That's impossible. Next to impossible. You may need to work extra hours a bit here and there, but don't make it a habit. Do take a break and take time for yourself. Tetapi, you kena duduk dan analisa di mana. Where am I wasting time? Or is wasting my time? Termasuk meeting. Challenge all the meeting you attend. Adakah semua meeting you kena pergi? Tak payah kot. Certain meeting, you say, you just give me the update. Or you send me the meeting minutes. Kalau ada concern, I datang tanya you balik. You can. Kalau you tak challenge, kalau you tak tanya, nothing will happen.
True. So there's another question, last question from our participant. Okay, how to become a professional OSH practitioner? I'm still new as OSC and feel like masih banyak kena belajar.
Okay. First of all, you kena, this is a personal thing, right? This is you. So kalau you nak jadi professional safety practitioner, it's all about you first. Jadi selfish a bit pula dah. Okay. So you kena daripada hati sanubari you dekat dalam ni, actually, why I want to do safety? You kena tanya soalan tu dulu. Kenapa saya buat safety ni? Apa yang mendorong saya untuk menceburi bidang safety? That's a question you ask, right? That is where your motivation is. And motivation ni, kalau if your answer is motivation is money, tak payah jauh, I no need to think about anything else anymore, right? Because some people, I pernah tanya, the motivation is money. And that one, it doesn't carry you very far. It has setiap kerja yang kita buat, it has to touch your heart. Very importantly, touch your heart. So you kena buat reflection a bit. Think of why I want to do. Why am I in safety? Lepas tu, you dah tahu your motivation. And your motivation not necessarily is safety. Your motivation adalah you punya sendiri punya personality. Atau you punya sendiri punya principle. I don't like to see people getting hurt. Saya rasa pedih, sedih. So I want to help. That could be a reason. I want to make a difference. I like making difference. I like improving system. All this can be a reason. Tak semestinya safety, ya. It could be your own personality. Then daripada reflection ni, you akan tahu what you want to achieve. So if my motivation is making a difference, my motivation is improving systems, my motivation is to ensure people don't get hurt. So these three things, my focus is different. Kalau if I don't want to hurt people, I cannot tahan tengok orang get hurt. Apa I buat? Then I focus on learning on risk assessments, process safety management, human psychology, for example. So then you will know what you want to learn. Then you expose yourself to this. If your interest is, I like to improve system, then you become system manager. ISO is something you pursue, for example. So you kena tahu daripada diri sendiri you, apa you nak, and di mana you nak contribute. You tak boleh jadi safety professional yang tahu semua. Nobody knows everything. Tapi you kena tahu diri sendiri. Sebab dekat safety, if you're not happy, number one, doing it, you're not passionate about it, it is living hell. Macam masuk neraka tau kerja ni. Kalau you tak ada passion and you don't enjoy it. So you kena fikir dulu lah what I enjoy about this job. And this is what I enjoy. Lepas tu I educate myself, expose myself, involve myself. Kalau I like improvement, volunteer jadi internal auditor dengan quality department. Sebab I like systems, for example. So then you find opportunities that meets what is inside you. That's important.
Yep. So I think Puan panel memang dah conclude with a good way lah for our discussion, because our participant cakap, thank you madam, 3 tahun saya struggle dengan soalan tu. So I think we want to wrap up for today podcast. So we just want our Puan panel to give one good suggestion that we can improve for our PTW and also our safety culture before we conclude this session today.
Okay. So pertama sekali sebelum tu, okay, saya jenis yang bila saya cakap tu boleh kasar sikit ya. I can be very pedih sometimes things saya cakap, okay. Ada juga yang boleh terasa. So, minta maaf lah kalau ada tersinggung sesiapa. But most importantly, I really thank everyone. Ya, terima kasih kerana meluangkan masa ni. It's already going to be 11. Duduk dengar saya bercakap, right? And I really hope apa yang saya cakap, saya share, benefit, ada membawa manfaat kepada anda. And I love the question sebab biasanya yang Zoom call ni bila tak ada soalan, tak ada orang nak bersembang dengan kita ni, kita pun boring juga. So this was very good questions. I really enjoyed the questions as well. Kalau as Puan Sabah tanya, what would be my one advice or one liner as a closure, I kata, kita kena sebagai safety practitioner ni, ubah mindset kita. Kita bukan safety professional, kita bukan safety practitioner, kita bukan green book, yellow book lah, kita bukan SHO lah, oh I am a registered DOSH professional. All that doesn't matter. What matters is we are risk managers. Kita kena change our mindset that is our job. Bukan anything else. The job is risk manager. Dan that is what we need to be. So kalau kita look everything from a risk perspective, kita boleh collaborate with other department. Sebab I'm managing the risk. I'm not managing your discipline. I'm not managing your attitude. I'm not managing anything else. I'm managing the risk. So bila you approach things from a risk perspective, you lebih senang cakap sebab you're not blaming anyone. You're not scolding anyone. I say, benda ni risiko, kita kena tangani risiko ni. How best can we handle this risk? And what is our alarm? Tak semestinya alarm tu kita terima ya. Safety kita nak semua alarm jadi green. No, sometimes management say this is my alarm. I'm okay with this risk. Terima je. Because we are managing risk. So that would be my closure. We are risk managers. We are not anything else.
Yep. Until then, thank you very much for all participant and of course kepada puan panel kita. So I think kita boleh wrap up session ni and until we meet again for another podcast.
Yeah.
So
And
yep.
for moderating this for me. It was a pleasure.
Yep, thank you. Thank you, Shamini, for giving the chance. Yep. Thank you, everyone.
Okay, over to organizer.
Yeah.
Okey, baiklah. Jadi berakhirlah sudah podcast Bual Bicara OSHI dan I kita pada malam ini. Setinggi-tinggi penghargaan kami ucapkan kepada Puan Sri Sharmini atas kesudian berkongsi ilmu, pengalaman dan pandangan yang amat bermakna bersama kita. Ucapan terima kasih juga kepada Puan Sabah Nura selaku moderator serta kepada semua peserta yang telah bersama-sama menyertai sesi ini sehingga ke penghujung program. Banyak input yang kita terima malam ini, jadi semoga segala ilmu dan perkongsian yang diperoleh pada malam ini dapat kita manfaatkan dan aplikasikan dalam organisasi serta tempat kerja masing-masing. Jadi insyaAllah kita akan bertemu lagi dalam siri podcast Bual Bicara OSHI dan I yang akan datang. Jangan lupa bersama dengan kami setiap Rabu malam jam 9 malam. Jadi dengan ini saya akhiri majlis pada malam ini dengan wabillahi taufiq wal hidayah. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Terima kasih dan selamat malam.
Bye. Good night.
Bye. Good night.
Good night. Thank you.
Good night. Thank you very much.